Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin.
The baby's cry cut through the October evening like a blade. Aurelia Kane stopped dead on her apartment building's front steps, her laptop bag sliding off her shoulder. The sound came again, sharp, desperate, demanding. She looked down at the small bundle wrapped in a pink blanket beside her door. Her first thought was that someone had made a mistake. Wrong apartment, wrong building, wrong life. But then she saw the note pinned to the fabric, and her stomach dropped. She recognized Nina's handwriting before she read the words. "I can't do this. She's yours now." Aurelia's hands trembled as she knelt beside the baby. The infant couldn't be more than a few weeks old, tiny and fragile. Dark hair peeked out from the blanket. And when the baby opened her eyes, they were Nina's exact shade of blue, the same eyes that had looked at Aurelia with desperate fear countless times during their childhood. "What did you do, Nina?" Aurelia whispered, her voice barely audible over the baby's cries. She scooped up the bundle, surprised by how light the baby felt, how perfectly she fit in her arms. The crying stopped immediately, as if the infant recognized something safe about Aurelia's touch. Inside her apartment, Aurelia cleared space on her couch and carefully unwrapped the blanket. The baby was wearing a tiny pink onesie that looked expensive, something Nina couldn't have afforded on her own. A birth certificate was tucked inside the blanket, Maren Kane. Mother, Nina Kane. Father, unknown. Born 6 weeks ago at Presbyterian Hospital, 6 weeks. Nina had been pregnant, given birth, and tried to raise a baby for 6 weeks without telling anyone in the family. The thought of her sister struggling alone made Aurelia's chest tight. Her phone buzzed. A text from Nina. "Don't call me. Don't look for me. I'm sorry. Take care of her." Aurelia stared at the message until the screen went dark. Then she picked up her landline and dialed her parents' number, her fingers moving automatically through the familiar sequence. Franklin Kane speaking. Her father's voice was crisp, professional, the same tone he used with clients. "Dad, it's Aurelia. I need you and Mom to come over right now. It's about Nina. What has she done now?" The annoyance in his voice was immediate. "She had a baby. She left her on my doorstep." The silence stretched for 30 seconds. Aurelia could hear the television in the background, could picture her parents in their pristine living room with its white furniture and family photos that told lies about their happiness. "What exactly are you telling me, Aurelia?" "Nina gave birth 6 weeks ago. She just abandoned the baby here with a note. Your granddaughter is sitting on my couch right now." "That's impossible. Nina would have told us if she was pregnant." "Apparently not. I have the birth certificate. Her name is Maren." Another long pause. "Where is Nina now?" "Gone. She left a text saying not to look for her." "This is unacceptable." Franklin's voice turned arctic. "Absolutely unacceptable. If Nina has made this mess, Nina can clean it up." "She's gone, Dad. The baby is here. I need you and Mom to come over and help me figure out what to do. I will not be dragged into this scandal. Your mother and I have worked too hard to build our reputation in this community to have it destroyed by Nina's poor choices." Aurelia felt something cold settle in her stomach. "This is your granddaughter we're talking about. No, this is Nina's mistake and your burden now. The Kane name will not be associated with this disgrace." "Dad, please. She's just a baby. She needs family." "Then you'll have to be her family. You always claim to be so independent, Aurelia. Here's your chance to prove it. You can't be serious. Handle it yourself. Find an adoption agency. Place her with a suitable family. Do whatever you need to do. But do not involve your mother and me in this situation. And if I keep her—" Franklin's laugh was harsh. "You? Raise a child? You work 60 hours a week and live in a one-bedroom apartment. Be realistic." "I'm more realistic than you are. At least I know what love looks like. Don't lecture me about love, Aurelia. I've given you and Nina everything you could possibly need. Except the one thing we actually needed. The line went dead. Aurelia stared at the phone for a long moment, then hung up carefully. She looked down at Marin, who was watching her with those impossibly blue eyes, somehow seeming to understand that her entire world had just shifted. "It's just us then," she said softly, running a finger along the baby's cheek. "But that's fine. I won't let them hurt you the way they hurt me and your mom." The magnitude of what had just happened hit her all at once. Her life, her carefully ordered, controlled life, had just been turned upside down. She had a mortgage, a demanding job, a career she had worked years to build. She had never changed a diaper, never fed a baby, never even held one for more than a few minutes. But as she looked at Marin, she felt something fierce and protective unfold in her chest. This tiny person had already been abandoned by everyone who should have protected her. Aurelia would not be another person who walked away. She called in sick to work the next morning, something she had never done in 5 years with the company. Then she drove to the nearest baby store and bought everything she could think of: formula, bottles, diapers in 3 different sizes, clothes, blankets, a crib that required 2 trips to get into her apartment. Her credit card took a beating, but she didn't care. Money could be earned back. Trust, once broken, was gone forever by evening. Her ordered life had become chaos. Marin cried every 2 hours, demanding food or a clean diaper or simply attention. Aurelia learned to function on 30-minute naps between feedings, to work her laptop balanced on her knees while holding a bottle, to think through code problems while walking a fussy baby around her living room at 3 in the morning. Nina never called. Neither did their parents point 10 years past in a blur of sleepless nights, scraped knees, school plays, and birthday parties for 2. Aurelia's apartment transformed into something she had never expected: a home, filled with laughter and crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator. She moved her office setup into the living room and gave Marin the bedroom, painting the walls yellow and hanging glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. The tech industry didn't care that she was a single mother. If anything, the challenge made her sharper, more focused. She learned to code with a baby on her lap, to negotiate contracts during nap time, to build a career around the tiny person who had become the center of her universe. Marin's presence changed everything about how Aurelia approached her work. She became ruthlessly efficient, cutting out unnecessary meetings and social events to maximize her time at home. She negotiated remote work days long before they became common, positioning herself as indispensable to avoid any questions about her flexibility. Her salary tripled as she climbed from junior developer to senior engineer to team lead. She saved every extra dollar, driven by a fierce determination to give Marin everything she had never had: security, stability, unconditional love. When Marin was 5, they moved to a 3-bedroom house in a good school district. Aurelia chose it for the excellent public schools and the large backyard where Marin could play safely. She installed a security system and made sure all the neighbors had her contact information. Marin grew into a bright, curious child with Nina's eyes but Aurelia's determination. She asked hard questions about why she didn't have a father or grandparents like other kids. "Some families are different," Aurelia would say, sitting on the edge of Marin's bed during their nightly talks. "We have each other. That's enough. But don't you get lonely?" Marin asked one night when she was 7, her small hand finding Aurelia's in the darkness. "How could I be lonely when I have you?" "But what about when I grow up and move away?" Aurelia smiled, though Marin couldn't see it. "Then I'll be proud that I raised someone brave enough to make her own life. But you'll always be my daughter, no matter how far away you go. Promise." "Promise." Franklin and Marjorie Kane lived 15 minutes away, but they might as well have been on another planet. Aurelia saw them occasionally at the grocery store or the bank. They would nod politely and look right through Marin as if she didn't exist. The first time it happened, Marin was 6 years old. They were in line at the pharmacy when Franklin walked past them without acknowledgement. Marin tugged on Aurelia's sleeve. Who was that man? He was staring at us. No one important, Aurelia said, pulling Marin closer, but Marin was observant. He looks like you, Aunt Aurelia. Some people just have similar features. Aurelia preferred the distance. She had learned long ago that her parents' love came with conditions and chains. Better to live without their approval than to dance to their tune. Nina surfaced sporadically a postcard from California with a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge. A brief phone call on Marin's 5th birthday where she sounded thin and distant. A Facebook message asking if the kid was doing okay. Aurelia answered briefly and truthfully. Marin was doing better than okay. She was thriving. Do you think my mom loves me? Marin asked once when she was 8 and had received a birthday card with $20 and no personal message. I think your mom loves you the only way she knows how, Aurelia said carefully. But sometimes people aren't good at showing love, even when they feel it. Are you good at showing love? I try to be. Do you feel loved? Marin nodded solemnly. Every day. On Marin's 10th birthday, they celebrated with pizza and a movie marathon. Just the two of them, as always. Aurelia had learned to make their small family feel complete, to fill every role Marin needed. Aunt Aurelia, Marin said as they cleaned up afterward. She had started calling Aurelia Aunt when she was old enough to understand that Aurelia wasn't her biological mother, though the distinction felt meaningless to both of them. What is it, baby? Do you think my mom will ever come back? Aurelia paused, a plate in her hands. It was a question Marin asked every few months, and Aurelia had learned to answer honestly without destroying hope. I don't know. Would you want her to? Marin considered this seriously, the way she approached all difficult questions. Maybe, but not if it means you'd go away. I'm not going anywhere. Ever. You're stuck with me. Marin grinned and hugged her tight. Good. I like being stuck with you. 3 weeks later, the lawsuit papers arrived. Aurelia found the legal documents wedged in her front door when she came home from Marin's soccer practice. The official envelope from Holloway and Associates made her stomach clench before she even opened it. She read the papers twice before the words sank in. Franklin and Marjorie Kane were suing for custody of their granddaughter. The petition was 12 pages of legal language that boiled down to a simple claim. Aurelia had unlawfully interfered with the grandparents' relationship with a minor child and had denied them access to their grandchild for the past 10 years without just cause. It stated that the Kanes were financially and emotionally equipped to provide superior care, and that the child's best interests would be served by immediate placement with her natural grandparents. Aurelia sat on her porch steps and laughed until tears ran down her face. It was the kind of laughter that comes when something is so absurd it breaks your brain. 10 years of silence, and now they wanted to play grandparents. Aunt Aurelia, what's wrong? Marin appeared in the doorway, still wearing her muddy soccer uniform and cleats. Aurelia quickly folded the papers and slipped them into her purse. Nothing, baby. Just work stuff. Go wash up for dinner. Are you sure? You look upset. I'm fine. Just tired. Marin studied her face with intensity that made her such a good student. You always tell me it's okay to talk about things that worry me. You're right. But this is something I need to handle myself first. I promise I'll explain everything once I understand it better. Okay, but if you need help figuring something out, I'm really good at problem solving. Aurelia's heart squeezed. I know you are. That's one of my favorite things about you. She waited until Marin was in bed before she called her parents' house. The phone rang 4 times before Marjorie answered. Aurelia, I wondered when you'd call. Why now? Aurelia kept her voice steady, though her hands were shaking. 10 years of pretending she doesn't exist, and now you want custody. We've reconsidered our position. Marin deserves to know her family. She has family. She has me. You're not her mother. Marjorie's tone was sharp, designed to cut. Nina is. And Nina left that child in your care, temporarily. She never gave up her parental rights. Nina hasn't contacted us in 3 years. She has no interest in being a mother. That doesn't matter legally. We're Marin's grandparents. We have rights under North Carolina law. Aurelia paced her kitchen, her bare feet silent on the tile floor. What do you really want? To provide Marin with the stability and resources you can't give her. A 2-parent household, financial security, private schools, the Kane family name and reputation. And when she disappoints you, when she doesn't live up to your impossible standards, what happens then? That won't happen. We've learned from our mistakes with you and Nina. Your mistakes. Aurelia's voice rose before she caught herself, remembering that Marin was sleeping upstairs. You call 20 years of emotional abuse a mistake. We provided for you. We gave you every advantage. Accept love. Accept acceptance. Accept the basic human decency of treating your children like people instead of possessions. Marjorie's voice hardened. That attitude won't serve you well in court, Aurelia. Judges prefer people who can discuss things rationally. Since when do you care about rationality? Since when do you care about what's best for anyone but yourselves? Careful. You're showing exactly why you're not suitable to raise a child. Too emotional, too unstable. Aurelia forced herself to breathe, to think. Her parents were trying to provoke her, to make her react emotionally. It was an old tactic, one they had used throughout her childhood. Let me ask you something, she said, her voice deadly calm. How did you find out about Marin's existence? You've ignored her for 10 years. What changed? The pause lasted too long. We've always known about her. But you've never tried to see her, never sent a birthday card, never asked how she was doing. Why the sudden interest? We're getting older. We want to know our granddaughter before it's too late. Try again. I don't know what you're implying. Aurelia smiled grimly. I'm saying that if this goes to trial, some very interesting information might come to light. Information about your real motives for wanting custody. You're fishing. You have nothing. Do I? We'll find out, won't we? See you in court, Aurelia. The line went dead. Aurelia stood in her kitchen for a long moment, staring at the phone. Then she opened her laptop and started researching family law. She learned about grandparent rights, custody standards, and the best interests of the child doctrine. She made lists and flowcharts and timelines, approaching the problem the same way she approached debugging code systematically, methodically, without emotion. By Thursday, she had a plan. She opened a new folder on her computer and labeled it Evidence. Then she started typing everything she could remember about her childhood, about Nina's struggles, about her parents' pattern of manipulation and control. IT was going to be a war. But Aurelia had been preparing for this war her entire life. The county courthouse smelled like old wood and broken dreams. Aurelia sat at the defendant's table, her lawyer beside her, shuffling papers nervously. David Martinez was a good family attorney with 15 years of experience, but he seemed overwhelmed by the scope of what they were facing. Remember, he whispered, adjusting his tie for the 3rd time, let me do the talking. Don't react to anything they say, no matter how untrue it is. Judges notice everything. Aurelia nodded, but her attention was focused on the table across the aisle. Franklin Kane wore his best suit, navy blue, perfectly pressed, the same one he wore to important client meetings. Marjorie sat beside him in pearls and a conservative dress, her gray hair styled perfectly. They looked like the picture of respectable grandparents, the kind of people judges instinctively trusted. Their attorney, Patricia Holloway, had a reputation for winning impossible cases. She was expensive, connected, and known for her aggressive tactics. The fact that her parents could afford her services told Aurelia everything she needed to know about how seriously they were taking this. Marin sat in the gallery behind Aurelia, flanked by her soccer coach and her 4th grade teacher. Aurelia had asked them to come as character witnesses. Both had seemed shocked that anyone would question her fitness as a guardian. Judge Harrison Locke entered the courtroom, and everyone rose. He was younger than Aurelia had expected, maybe 50, with graying temples and sharp eyes that seemed to catalog every detail. His reputation was for being fair but thorough. He wouldn't be swayed by emotion, but he would listen to facts. "Be seated," Judge Locke said, settling behind the bench. "We're here for the custody petition filed by Franklin and Marjorie Kane regarding their granddaughter, Maren Kane, currently in the care of Aurelia Kane. Ms. Holloway, you may proceed with your opening statement." Patricia Holloway stood, smoothing her skirt with practiced efficiency. "Thank you, Your Honor. My clients have been denied access to their granddaughter for 10 years through no fault of their own. They have watched from afar as this child has been raised by someone with no legal standing, no family support, and limited resources compared to what they could provide." Aurelia's jaw tightened, but she kept her expression neutral. "The Kanes are prepared to provide Maren with everything she needs: a stable two-parent home, excellent private schools, and the love and guidance that only grandparents can give. They ask only for the chance to be part of their granddaughter's life, as is their right under North Carolina law." Holloway painted a picture of devoted grandparents who had been cruelly separated from their granddaughter by a selfish sister who wanted to play house with someone else's child. Judge Locke looked across at Franklin and Marjorie. "Mr. and Mrs. Kane, can you explain to the court why you waited 10 years to assert these rights?" Franklin stood, his voice carrying the confidence that had made him successful in business. "Your Honor, we were initially shocked by our daughter Nina's decision to abandon her child. We hoped she would return and take responsibility. When that didn't happen, we respected Aurelia's desire to care for the child independently. But now you've changed your minds." Marjorie joined Franklin at the podium, her voice soft and grandmotherly. "We've realized that Maren deserves more than what one person can provide, no matter how well-intentioned. She deserves a complete family, stability, the opportunities that come with the Kane name and resources. We have grandchildren's rights," Franklin added. "We've researched the law extensively. A child should know her family, her heritage." Judge Locke turned to Aurelia. "Ms. Kane, how do you respond to these claims?" Aurelia stood slowly. David had advised her to let him handle this, but she found herself speaking anyway. "Your Honor, I've raised Maren since she was 6 weeks old. I've been her only constant family for 10 years. I've never denied anyone access to her. No one ever asked for it. But you acknowledge that your parents are her biological grandparents. I acknowledge their DNA connection. But being someone's grandparent isn't about biology. It's about showing up. It's about being there when a child needs you, not just when it's convenient. My parents haven't done that." Patricia Holloway objected. "Your Honor, Ms. Kane is not qualified to determine what constitutes adequate grandparenting." Sustained. Judge Locke made a note on his legal pad. "Mr. Martinez, does your client have any evidence to support her position?" David stood, looking nervous but determined. "Yes, Your Honor. We have extensive testimony from teachers, coaches, and neighbors about Ms. Kane's excellent care of Maren. We also have financial records showing her ability to provide for the child and documentation of her stable employment and living situation." "And what about the grandparents' claim that they were denied access?" "We have phone records and emails showing that contact between the families has been minimal by mutual choice, not because of any interference by Ms. Kane. In fact, our evidence will show that Mr. and Mrs. Kane showed no interest in their granddaughter until very recently." Judge Locke reviewed his notes. "I'll need to see all evidence before making any decisions. This case will reconvene in 2 weeks. I want both sides to prepare comprehensive presentations about what's in the best interests of this child." As the courtroom emptied, Aurelia watched her parents shake hands with their lawyer. Franklin caught her eye across the room and nodded slightly, as if acknowledging a business competitor. The gesture was so typical of him, turning even this into a transaction. A power play. Patricia Holloway approached David Martinez. My clients are prepared to discuss a settlement if your client is reasonable. What kind of settlement? David asked. Full custody to my clients, with generous visitation rights for Ms. Kane. Absolutely not, Aurelia said before David could respond. Holloway smiled coldly. Think carefully, Ms. Kane. Court battles are expensive and unpredictable. My clients have significant resources and community standing. You're a single woman with no family support, trying to keep a child that isn't legally yours. She's mine in every way that matters. Legally is the only way that matters in this courtroom. That evening, Aurelia tucked Marin into bed and tried to explain what was happening without scaring her. Are Grandpa Frank and Grandma Marjorie going to take me away? Marin asked, her voice small in the darkness. I won't let that happen, Aurelia said, smoothing Marin's hair. I promise. But what if the judge says I have to go? Then we'll figure something out. But I'm going to fight for you with everything I have. Why do they want me now? They never wanted me before. It was a good question. One that Aurelia intended to answer. Aurelia's home office became a war room. She covered one wall with a timeline of events, another with family photos, and a third with printed emails and documents. She worked late into the night while Marin slept, building her case piece by piece. The breakthrough came when she remembered Nina's storage unit. After Nina disappeared 3 years ago, she had asked Aurelia to keep paying the rent on a small storage space across town. Just in case, Nina had said during one of her rare phone calls. In case I need my stuff someday. Aurelia had forgotten about it until now, but the monthly automatic payment from her checking account was proof that the unit still existed. Saturday morning, she dropped Marin at soccer practice and drove to the storage facility. The manager, an elderly man with kind eyes and grease-stained overalls, recognized her from her previous visits. Haven't seen you in a while, he said, looking up from his crossword puzzle. Everything okay with your sister? We're hoping to clean out the unit, Aurelia said. It's been a few years. Storage 47, right? I remember because she was always so polite when she came by. Not like some of the folks we get here. The metal door rolled up with a screech that echoed through the empty hallway. Inside, cardboard boxes were stacked against the walls, along with a few pieces of furniture covered in dust sheets and some old clothes hanging on a makeshift rod. Everything smelled like dust and regret. Aurelia pulled out the boxes one by one, looking for anything that might help her case. Most contained Nina's college textbooks, photo albums full of pictures that told the story of their fractured family, and random household items she had never bothered to sell. But in the last box, buried under old magazines and a broken picture frame, she found a manila folder labeled Important Stuff in Nina's careful handwriting. Inside was Nina's journal from high school and college, along with a stack of letters and official documents that made Aurelia's hand shake as she read them. Nina's journal entries painted a picture of their childhood that Aurelia had tried to forget, but the written words made it impossible to dismiss as exaggeration or teenage drama. One entry, dated during Nina's senior year of high school, made Aurelia stop breathing. They found out about the party last weekend. Dad screamed at me for 2 hours about embarrassing the family name. Mom just stood there watching like always. Then they grounded me for 3 months and took away my car. Aurelia tried to defend me, so they took away her college fund too. They said if I can't behave like a Kane, neither of us deserves Kane privileges. I hate them. I hate this family. I hate what they've done to us. Sometimes I think about running away and never coming back. Maybe then they'd realize how much damage they've caused. Another entry from Nina's freshman year of college. Called home yesterday to ask for help with tuition. Dad said if I can't manage my money, I don't deserve their support. Mom said maybe I should find a husband to take care of me instead of wasting their money on a degree I'll never use. They hung up on me. Aurelia sent me money from her part-time job, even though she can barely afford her own expenses. She's the only family I have that actually acts like family. The letters were even more damning. 3 different notes from social workers at their elementary school, asking about concerning bruises on the Kane children and behavioral changes that suggest home environment stress. A letter from a family therapist recommending that Nina and Aurelia be temporarily removed from the home environment until Mr. and Mrs. Kane complete mandatory parenting classes and anger management therapy. A police report from when 15-year-old Nina had tried to run away and had been found sleeping in Pullen Park at 2 in the morning. Too afraid to go home, the bottom of the folder was a sealed envelope addressed to Aurelia in Nina's handwriting. The postmark was from 2 years ago. Inside was a letter that changed everything. Aurelia, if you're reading this, something has happened to me, or I've disappeared again, and you're cleaning up my mess. I need you to know some things about Marin and why I left her with you. Her father is a guy named Ryan Castellanos from Charlotte. We dated for 6 months, but he was married and had no interest in being a father. When I told him I was pregnant, he gave me money for an abortion and cut off all contact. I kept the money and had Marin instead that I tried to raise her for 6 weeks, but I couldn't do it. Every time I looked at her, I saw myself as a baby, helpless and unwanted. I saw Mom and Dad standing over her crib, already planning how to control her life. I couldn't let that happen, Dad. I know you think I'm selfish for leaving her, but I did it because I love her. You're the only person in our family who knows how to love without conditions. You're the only one who can protect her from them. Mom and Dad don't know about the trust fund yet. Ryan's family has money, old Charlotte money. His grandmother left Marin $2.3 million that she'll inherit when she turns 18. If Mom and Dad find out about it, they'll try to get custody just to control that money. Don't let them. The trust documents are in my safety deposit box at First National. The key is taped under the bottom drawer of my old desk, if you still have it. Use this information however you need to. I'm sorry for everything. Take care of my baby girl. Love, Nina. Aurelia read the letter 3 times, her mind racing. A trust fund worth over $2 million. Her parents' sudden interest in custody finally made sense. She called David Martinez from the storage unit parking lot. We need to meet, she said. I found something. Can it wait until Monday? No, this changes everything. David Martinez's office smelled like coffee and legal briefs. He sat behind his desk reading Nina's letter and the other documents while Aurelia waited, her leg bouncing with nervous energy. This is explosive, he said finally, setting down the papers. If your parents knew about the trust fund when they filed for custody, they had to know. This explains everything. But we need proof they knew. Just having the trust fund exist isn't enough to prove financial motivation. How would they have found out? David leaned back in his chair, thinking. Trust fund records become public when the beneficiary reaches certain ages or when certain conditions are met. Marin is 10 now. Some trusts require notification at that age. Aurelia felt pieces clicking into place like a complex algorithm finally compiling correctly. So they get a letter saying their granddaughter is worth millions, and suddenly they remember they have parental instincts. It's a theory, but we need proof they received notification, proof they know about the money. I can get proof. David looked concerned. Aurelia, don't do anything that could hurt our case. No breaking and entering, no illegal surveillance. I won't do anything illegal, but I know someone who can help. That afternoon, Aurelia met Caleb Rivers at a coffee shop downtown. Caleb had been her neighbor growing up, 2 years older, and always getting into trouble for asking uncomfortable questions about things adults preferred to keep hidden. Now he worked as an investigative journalist for the local paper. Aurelia Kane, he said, sliding into the booth across from her. Haven't seen you since high school graduation. You look good, successful. Thanks. I need a favor, Caleb. and I need it to stay between us for now. Interesting. What kind of favor? She told him about the custody case and the trust fund, watching his expression change from casual interest to professional focus. Caleb listened without interrupting, occasionally taking notes in his trademark shorthand. So you think your parents are after the money, not the kid? I think they see an opportunity to control both. A $2 million trust fund gives them serious motivation to get custody. What do you need from me? Help me prove they know about the trust. Phone records, financial documents, anything that shows they've been planning this. Caleb was quiet for a moment, stirring his coffee thoughtfully. Your parents have connections in this town. This could get messy for both of us. It's already messy. The question is whether you're going to help me clean it up. What's in it for me? Aurelia smiled grimly. The story of a lifetime. Prominent local family tries to steal their own granddaughter's inheritance. Think that would sell papers? It would if I could prove it. But I'd need documentation, sources, the whole thing. Give me 2 weeks. I'll get you proof. They shook hands across the table, and Aurelia felt like she had just recruited her first ally in what was shaping up to be a complicated war. That evening, Aurelia called her parents' house. Franklin answered on the second ring. I want to propose a settlement, she said without preamble. I'm listening. Supervised visitation. 1 afternoon a month. I choose the location and the supervisor. In exchange, you drop the custody petition. Franklin was quiet for several seconds. That's not acceptable. Why not? If this is really about having a relationship with Marin, visitation should be enough. We want what's best for her. That means a stable family environment with proper resources. Since when do you care what's best for anyone but yourselves? Careful, Aurelia. That attitude won't serve you well in court. Neither will lying about your motives. What are you implying? Aurelia took a breath, making her voice sound casual. I'm saying that if this goes to trial, some very interesting information might come to light. Information about trust funds and financial motivations, and why 2 people who ignored their granddaughter for 10 years suddenly want custody. The silence stretched for 30 seconds. She could hear Franklin breathing, could picture him calculating risks and benefits the way he did with every business decision. You're fishing, he said finally. Am I? You have nothing. You're grasping at straws because you know you can't win on the merits. Try me. Franklin's voice hardened. Fine. Let's finish this in court. But don't say I didn't give you a chance to be reasonable. The line went dead. Aurelia smiled and immediately called Caleb. It's Aurelia. I just confirmed they know about the money. They didn't deny it when I brought up trust funds. Now we need to prove how they found out and what they're planning to do with it. I'm already on it. My contact at the courthouse pulled the trust filing. It was officially recorded last month, which means your parents could have been notified by the trustee. Can you trace who accessed the records? Working on it. I also have a friend who works for a private investigation firm. If your parents hired someone to research Marin's background, there might be a paper trail. How long will that take? Few days, maybe a week. But Aurelia, be careful. If they're as ruthless as you think they are, they won't take this lying down. Good, Aurelia said. Neither will I. The morning of the final custody hearing, Aurelia woke before dawn. She had barely slept, her mind running through every possible scenario, every piece of evidence, every argument her parents might make. She showered, dressed in her best suit navy blue like her father's. She realized with dark amusement and made breakfast for Marin, pancakes in the shape of hearts, their weekend tradition. Are you scared? Marin asked, pushing syrup around her plate without eating much. No, Aurelia said, sitting across from her. I'm ready. What if the judge decides I have to go live with them? Aurelia reached across the table and took Marin's hand. That's not going to happen. I have information they don't know I have. What kind of information? The kind that shows people's true intentions. At the courthouse, reporters had gathered outside. Word had leaked about the case, probably through Caleb's preliminary inquiries, and the story of a custody battle involving the prominent Kane family was drawing attention. Aurelia carried a sealed manila folder as she walked past the cameras. David Martinez had asked about it twice, but she had told him to trust her. Now, sitting at the defendant's table, she felt the weight of everything she had discovered pressing down on her shoulders. Judge Locke called the court to order. We're here to conclude the custody hearing for Marin Kane. Ms. Holloway, please present your final arguments. Patricia Holloway stood, her closing statement polished and persuasive. She had clearly spent considerable time preparing, and she delivered her arguments with the confidence of someone who expected to win. Your Honor, this case is about a child's right to know her family and a family's right to love and support their granddaughter. My clients have been denied access to Marin for 10 years, not through any fault of their own, but because of one person's desire to control the situation. She painted Aurelia as well-meaning, but ultimately inadequate, a single woman without family support trying to raise a child alone when a loving, stable family was available. Marin deserves more than one person can give her, no matter how devoted that person might be. She deserves the love and guidance of her grandparents, the security of the Kane family name, and the opportunities that come with their resources and connections. Franklin and Marjorie nodded along, playing their roles perfectly. David Martinez presented Aurelia's case with competence, but without the fire she had hoped for. He talked about testimonials from teachers and neighbors, financial records showing her stability, evidence of her deep bond with Marin. It was solid but unremarkable. Judge Locke reviewed his notes, clearly preparing to make his decision. Ms. Kane, before I issue my ruling, is there anything else you'd like the court to consider? Aurelia stood, her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Yes, Your Honor. I have additional evidence that I believe is relevant to this case. She walked to the judge's bench and handed him the sealed folder. What does this contain? Judge Locke asked. Everything you need to know about my parents' true motivations for seeking custody. Patricia Holloway objected immediately. Your Honor, we haven't had time to review this evidence. This is highly irregular. The evidence only came to light last week, Aurelia said. But I think the court needs to see it before making any decisions about my daughter's future. Judge Locke opened the folder and began reading. Inside were copies of Nina's journal entries, the social worker reports, the police report from Nina's runaway attempt, and most importantly, a printed email chain between Franklin Kane and a private investigator, detailing their search for information about potential financial assets related to Marin Kane. Caleb had come through. His contact at the investigation firm had provided copies of all correspondence with the Kanes, including invoices for services related to asset research and financial background investigation of minor child. The judge read in silence for several minutes. His expression grew darker with each page. Mr. and Mrs. Kane, he said finally, his voice carrying a chill that made the entire courtroom go silent. Can you explain these communications with a private investigator regarding your granddaughter's financial situation? Franklin stood, slowly, his confidence finally showing cracks. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Your Honor. I'm referring to emails dated 3 weeks before you filed for custody, instructing an investigator to research any trusts, inheritances, or financial assets associated with Marin Kane. I'm referring to a payment of $5,000 for information about a trust fund worth over $2 million. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Patricia Holloway looked like she had been slapped. Marjorie grabbed Franklin's arm, but he shook her off. Every family has a right to know about financial matters that affect their grandchildren. Is that why you're seeking custody? To gain control of this trust fund? Of course not. We want custody because we love Marin and want what's best for her. Judge Locke looked at the next set of documents. These are reports from social workers documenting concerns about your treatment of your own daughters. Can you explain a police report from when Nina was 15, found sleeping in a park after running away from home? Nina was a troubled teenager, Marjorie said, standing beside her husband. We did our best to help her. And these journal entries from Nina, describing years of emotional abuse and manipulation. Nina was prone to exaggeration and drama. She never learned to take responsibility for her actions. Aurelia stood up. Your Honor, may I present one more piece of evidence? Proceed. Aurelia pulled out her phone and connected it to the courtroom's presentation system. This is a video recording Nina made 2 years ago before she disappeared. She gave it to a friend with instructions to release it if our parents ever tried to gain custody of Marin. The video began playing on the large screen. Nina appeared, thin and tired but clear-headed, sitting in what looked like a cheap motel room. My name is Nina Kane, and I'm making this recording on March 15th, 2022, in case something happens to me or in case our parents ever try to get custody of my daughter. I want everyone to know that I left Marin with my sister Aurelia because she's the only person I trust to protect her. Our parents, Franklin and Marjorie Kane, are not safe people to be around children. The video detailed years of psychological abuse, financial manipulation, and emotional neglect. Nina spoke calmly and clearly about the impossible standards, the constant criticism, and the way their parents had used love as a weapon to control their daughters. If they ever try to get custody of Marin, it won't be because they love her. It will be because they want to control her, probably for financial reasons. They destroyed me and they nearly destroyed Aurelia. Don't let them destroy my daughter the way they destroyed us. When the video ended, the courtroom was completely silent. Judge Locke closed the folder and looked across the courtroom with an expression of barely controlled anger. Mr. and Mrs. Kane, in light of this evidence, I'm inclined to deny your petition for custody immediately. However, there's another matter that needs to be addressed. He picked up his phone and made a brief call. Ms. Henderson, please send them in. The courtroom doors opened, and 2 people in suits entered. Aurelia recognized them immediately. Detective Sarah Coleman and ADA Robertson from the district attorney's office. Franklin and Marjorie exchanged worried glances for the first time all day. Your Honor, Detective Coleman said, approaching the bench with official documents. We're here to execute arrest warrants for Franklin and Marjorie Kane. On what charges? Patricia Holloway demanded, her composure finally cracking. ADA Chin opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick file. Fraud in the first degree, embezzlement of charitable funds, and elder abuse. We've been investigating the Kanes' business practices for 6 months, and today's revelations have provided additional evidence of a pattern of financial manipulation and abuse spanning several years. Aurelia felt a surge of fierce satisfaction. 3 months ago, she had contacted the district attorney's office with suspicions about her parents' business dealings. She had noticed discrepancies in their charity work, questionable real estate transactions, and reports from elderly clients who felt they had been overcharged or manipulated. The investigation had been moving slowly until Aurelia provided evidence of their research into Marin's trust fund that had given prosecutors the final piece they needed to prove intent to commit fraud against a minor. This is ridiculous, Franklin said, but his voice had lost its commanding tone. We've done nothing wrong. Franklin Kane, you're under arrest for fraud in the first degree, embezzlement of charitable funds, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes against a minor, Detective Coleman said, producing handcuffs. Marjorie Kane, you're under arrest as an accessory to fraud and for elder abuse of 3 clients between 2018 and 2022. You have the right to remain silent, Detective Coleman continued as she cuffed Franklin. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. As her parents were led away in handcuffs, Aurelia remained perfectly still. She felt no sympathy, no regret, no urge to intervene. They had made their choices throughout their lives, choosing control over love, manipulation over honesty, greed over family. Now they would face the consequences. Judge Locke waited until the courtroom doors closed before speaking again. Ms. Kane, I'm dismissing the custody petition with prejudice. Marion will remain in your care permanently. Thank you, Your Honor. I'm also recommending that you seek a restraining order to prevent any future contact between the defendants and your daughter. The evidence presented today suggests that such contact would not be in her best interests. Aurelia nodded. I'll file the paperwork immediately. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the State Attorney General's office for review of potential violations of children's welfare statutes. What I've seen today suggests a pattern of behavior that may affect other families. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded around Aurelia and Marin. Caleb Rivers had broken the story that morning, and it was already spreading across social media and local news outlets. Ms. Kane, how do you feel about your parents' arrest? One reporter called out. Aurelia stopped and faced the cameras, Marin's hand firmly in hers. I feel relieved that the truth has finally come to light. My only concern has always been protecting my daughter from people who would use her for their own gain. Do you think your parents deserve this outcome? I think they got exactly what they deserved. They spent decades trying to control and manipulate the people around them. Today, that behavior finally caught up with them. Will you visit them in jail? Will you try to reconcile? Aurelia's expression hardened, and her voice carried the same steel that had built her career and protected her family. No, they made their choices 10 years ago when they abandoned their granddaughter, and they made them again when they decided to use her for financial gain. I forgive nothing, and I forget nothing. What about Marin? How do you explain this to a 10-year-old? Aurelia looked down at Marin, who was watching the reporters with curiosity rather than fear. Marin understands that some people make good choices and some people make bad choices. She also understands that actions have consequences. She took Marin's hand and walked away from the cameras, ignoring the shouted questions that followed them. That evening, Aurelia and Marin sat on their back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Marin was quiet, processing everything that had happened. Are you sad about Grandpa Frank and Grandma Marjorie? She asked finally. No, Aurelia said honestly. Are you? Marin considered this carefully, the way she approached all important questions. I think I should be, but I'm not. Is that wrong? You don't owe them sadness, baby. You don't owe them anything. They never earn the right to your emotions. What happens now? Now we keep living our life. We go to soccer practice and help with homework and have movie marathons on Friday nights. Nothing changes except that we don't have to worry about anyone trying to take you away from me. Good, Marin said, leaning against Aurelia's shoulder. I like our life the way it is. Aurelia kissed the top of her head. So do I. Her phone buzzed with a text from Caleb. Franklin took a plea deal. 20 years. Marjorie got 15. Thought you'd want to know. Aurelia deleted the message without responding. She wasn't interested in their sentences or their fate. They were no longer part of her world, and they never would be again. 3 weeks later, a package arrived at Aurelia's office. Inside was a letter from Nina, postmarked from Oregon. Aurelia, I saw the news about Mom and Dad. I can't say I'm surprised, but I'm proud of you for fighting back. Marin is lucky to have you, Dad. I'm doing better now. I've been clean for 8 months, and I'm seeing a therapist twice a week. I have a job at a bookstore and a small apartment near the coast. I'm not ready to be anyone's mother yet. Maybe I never will be. But I want you to know that I think about you and Marin every day. I signed the legal papers officially giving up my parental rights and naming you as Marin's mother. You've earned that title 1,000 times over. Take care of each other. Love, Nina P.S. The trust fund is real, and it's bigger than I thought. Use it to give Marin every opportunity we never had. Aurelia filed the adoption papers that afternoon, her heart full of a satisfaction she had never expected to feel 6 months later. She stood in the same courthouse where she had fought for her daughter's future. This time, Judge Locke was smiling as he signed the final adoption decree. Congratulations, Ms. Kane. Marin is officially your daughter in the eyes of the law. Aurelia looked down at Marin, who was grinning and wearing a new dress she had picked out specially for the occasion. How does it feel to be officially adopted? Aurelia asked as they walked down the courthouse steps. It feels like it always has, Marin said, swinging their joined hands. Like you're my mom, and I'm your daughter, and nothing can ever change that. Nothing can, Aurelia agreed. They walked to their car together, mother and daughter in truth as well as law. Aurelia had protected what was hers, fought for what mattered, and won completely. Her parents were in prison. Nina was finding her own path, and Marin was safe. She forgave nothing, and she forgot nothing. But she had something better than forgiveness. She had victory. Complete, total, ruthless victory, and she had her daughter. Nothing else mattered.